A billionaire thought he ruled a perfect household until one afternoon he walked into his garden and saw his maid on her knees eating grass with tears streaming down her face. At first he thought she'd lost her mind, but the truth was far worse. A cruel rule enforced under his own roof, and a sacrifice so heartbreaking it brought him to his knees. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments what time is it and where are you watching from. Let's start. The Whitmore mansion looked perfect from the outside. White walls, arched windows, and a lawn trimmed so precisely it almost felt fake. But inside, perfection came at a cost, one carried silently on the back of the people who served there. Amara, the maid, adjusted her black and white uniform in the hallway mirror before heading toward the kitchen. Her hands shook, not from fatigue alone, but from the gnawing emptiness inside her stomach. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. "Where do you think you're going?" The sharp voice of Mrs. Whitmore cut through the air. Billionaire's wife stood near the kitchen doorway, her silk robe brushing the floor. Her lips curled in disdain. "I was only coming to," Amara began softly. "To what?" The woman snapped, stepping closer. "Don't tell me you thought you'd help yourself to food again." Amara lowered her head, clutching her apron. "I wasn't." "Don't lie to me," Mrs. Whitmore hissed. "I told you the rule when you were hired. Servants don't eat the family's food. Not leftovers, not crumbs. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am," her voice cracked. The mistress smirked, pouring her coffee slowly, letting the smell of roasted beans fill the air. "You're paid to work, not to eat. If you're hungry, bring your own bread or starve. Either way, it's not my problem." Amara's eyes stung, but she didn't reply. Silence was safer. She turned, walking out into the hallway, her stomach twisting painfully. Hours passed. She scrubbed floors, dusted furniture, ironed the billionaire's suits. Each movement felt heavier than the last. Her head spun as she carried laundry upstairs, her body screaming for even a scrap of bread. But every time she passed the kitchen, Mrs. Whitmore's warning echoed in her ears. By afternoon, Amara could barely stand straight. She stepped outside, needing air. The mansion's garden stretched wide, green, and perfect. She collapsed on the grass, clutching her stomach. Tears blurred her vision. I can't anymore," she whispered to herself. She tried to breathe, but the hunger clawed at her ribs. In desperation, she pulled a handful of fresh grass from the ground and shoved it into her mouth, sobbing as she chewed. The bitterness filled her tongue, but it was anything to silence the ache inside. "Why am I like this? God, why?" she cried into the dirt, stuffing more grass between her lips. Her tears soaked the soil beneath her face. Behind her, footsteps sounded on the stone path. Amara froze. A deep voice cut through the air. "What the hell is this?" Her head jerked up. Standing a few feet away was Mr. Whitmore himself, the billionaire. His navy suit was flawless, his polished shoes gleaming under the sun, but his face was twisted in shock. "Amara," he said slowly, his voice almost trembling. "What are you doing?" She scrambled to her knees, spitting grass from her mouth, her hands trembling. "Sir," words failed her. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Are you insane? Why are you eating grass like some animal?" Shame burned her cheeks. She couldn't look at him. "I'm sorry, please answer me." His voice rose, frustration mixing with disbelief. "What is this? Explain yourself." Her chest heaved, but fear sealed her lips. The memory of his wife's threats echoed louder than her hunger. "If you tell him you're finished, you lose this job, and then what will your family eat?" She choked on her words, clutching her apron. "I can't." He loomed over her, his anger masking something else. Confusion, maybe even fear. "You can't what? Speak." Her silence cut through the garden like a knife. The billionaire's jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. "You will tell me, Amara, now because what I just saw." He stopped, his voice shaking. "No, I want the truth." But Amara bowed her head lower, her body trembling. She couldn't betray the threat of her mistress. She couldn't risk losing the only wages that kept her family alive. And so she knelt there, grass clinging to her lips, silent under his burning gaze. The billionaire's chest rose and fell sharply as he stared at her, waiting, demanding, but she said nothing. Not yet. The air between them hung heavy, the silence louder than any scream. Mr. Whitmore's eyes were fixed on Amara, his breath sharp as if he were holding back a storm. "Amara," he said again, lower this time, more dangerous. "I don't want excuses. I want answers. Why were you on your knees in my garden, eating grass like some?" He stopped himself, swallowing hard. "Why?" Her lips trembled, her hands twisted into her apron. She wanted to vanish into the soil beneath her. "Sir, please don't ask me." That only fueled his anger. He bent down, forcing his gaze to meet hers. "Don't ask you. I just caught you humiliating yourself like an animal on my property and you expect me to ignore it. Number. You will tell me the truth." Her chest rose and fell with panicked breaths. Tears streamed down her face, but still she shook her head. "If I speak, she will." She who? His tone sharpened, his voice slicing through her half-spoken words. The sliding glass door creaked behind them. Mrs. Whitmore's cold voice rang out. What is going on here? Amara flinched, her whole body stiffening like prey, sensing a predator. Mr. Whitmore turned, his jaw tightening as his wife stepped barefoot onto the patio, her silk robe flowing, eyes narrowed at the scene before her. He straightened. Explain to me, he said, his voice trembling with fury now, why I just found our maid on the ground eating grass. Mrs. Whitmore didn't even blink. She sipped from the porcelain cup in her hand, her lips curling in irritation more than shame because she's a servant and servants don't eat what belongs to us. His face drained of color. What? She walked closer, waving a hand, dismissively. Don't look at me like that. I told her from the beginning, the staff are not allowed to touch our food, not leftovers, not scraps. They are here to serve, not to feed themselves like parasites. Amara's head dropped lower, hot tears burning her cheeks. She wanted to disappear, but Mrs. Whitmore's words stabbed deeper than hunger. Mr. Whitmore's chest rose, then sank, his hand trembling at his side. You mean to tell me you've been forbidding them to eat in my house? Mrs. Whitmore rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic, they have wages. If they're too stupid to bring their own bread, that's their fault. I won't have servants rummaging through my refrigerator like rats. This house has standards. He stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. Standards. His voice cracked, disbelief lacing every syllable. You call this cruelty standards? She was starving to the point of chewing grass. And you, he broke off, his voice shaking. You watched it happen. Mrs. Whitmore's expression hardened. Don't raise your voice at me. This is my household. You're never here, always buried in work. I kept order. If she's hungry, let her figure it out. That's not my problem. Something inside him snapped, his hands clenched, his throat tightening. He turned to Amara, her frail body hunched, her eyes glued to the ground as if shame alone could bury her. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, softer, now desperate. Amara shook her head, sobbing. Because, sir, she said if I complained, I'd be thrown out and I sent all my wages back home. My son is sick. If I lose this job, her voice broke completely. He won't survive. The billionaire staggered back a step, his throat closing, his eyes blurred. His maid wasn't mad. She wasn't weak. She was starving in silence to keep a child alive while scraps of food were tossed into the trash in his kitchen. He turned to his wife, his voice raw. Do you hear that? She's been starving under our roof while you threw food away. Do you even realize what you've done? Mrs. Whitmore's jaw tightened. Don't turn this into some melodrama. She's just a maid. They come and go. Don't act like she matters more than enough. His roar shook the garden, silencing even the birds. He stepped toward her, his finger trembling in the air. Don't you dare speak another word, not one more. I don't even recognize the woman standing in front of me. Heartless, cruel, inhuman. Mrs. Whitmore's mouth opened, but the look in his eyes silenced her. He turned back to Amara, his chest heaving. Slowly, he knelt down on the grass beside her, his hand hovering awkwardly, ashamed. Forgive me, he whispered, his voice breaking. Forgive me for not seeing, for not knowing, for letting this happen under my roof. Amara sobbed harder, her frail body shaking, but she didn't move away. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt tears burn his own eyes. His empire, his money, his power, it meant nothing in that moment. What shattered him wasn't business loss or scandal. It was the sight of a loyal maid forced to chew grass while his wife sipped coffee. I swear to you, he said, his voice trembling but steady. This ends today. You will never go hungry again. Not while I have breath in my body. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the immaculate garden. And there in the quiet, the mighty billionaire broke. Not from market crashes, not from rivals, but from the unbearable truth of the cruelty in his own home. It made him cry. If this story shook you, let us know in the comments. What would you have done if you were in the billionaire's place? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more people can hear stories that remind us of compassion and justice.